The papyrus also lists various plant-based remedies. Acacia leaves, sycamore fig, and onion were frequently used. Onions, papyrus with their pungent oils, were believed to have purifying properties. You imagine the stinging sensation of onion juice in your already irritated eyes, a painful path to potential relief. The healer gestures to a drawing of a lotus flower. The petals, he explains, were sometimes steeped in water, and the infusion used as an eye wash, believed to have a calming effect. It's a pleasant thought, a gentle floral rinse after the harshness of the desert. You stir. The cool temple air, a gentle balm on your skin. But as your eyelids flutter open, the world remains stubbornly indistinct. The divine healing, like the magical spells and the crude surgeries, seems to be a slow, deliberate process. Or perhaps you realize with a sigh, the very environment you inhabit is working against any chance of true recovery. You step out of the temple, back into the relentless embrace of the Egyptian landscape, and immediately, your eyes begin to sting. This isn't just bad luck, it's the very air you breathe, the very sun that warms your skin, conspiring against your precious sight. Hey guys, tonight we're going to drift back, far back, to a land bathed in the golden glow of an unforgiving sun. A land where the mighty Nile snaked through the desert, bringing life and, surprisingly, a whole lot of eye trouble. Imagine yourself there, centuries before your time, a simple farmer, perhaps, or a craftsman, living under that relentless Egyptian sky. Every gust of wind whips up fine, abrasive sand, stinging your eyes, blurring your vision. The sun, a blazing orb, assaults your delicate retinas day in and day out. You blink, you squint, you rub. But the irritation persists, a constant nagging companion. And the flies. Oh, the flies, they swarm, they land. They carry unseen invaders, turning your eyes into itchy, burning battlegrounds. Honestly, if you were there, you'd probably be blind by Tuesday. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening, why not drop your location and local time in the comments? It's always fascinating to see where you're all drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The ancient Egyptians lived in a land of extremes. The Nile, a ribbon of life, carved its way through an otherwise vast, unforgiving desert. And it is this desert, this omnipresent sea of sand, that is perhaps the most insidious enemy of your eyes. A common historical fact you'd quickly learn is that the fine, abrasive sand, constantly whipped up by the wind, was a primary cause of eye irritation and injury. Imagine, every single day, microscopic particles of quartz and feldspar, sharp-edged and relentless, being driven into your eyes. You blink, you rub, but the grit persists, a constant, nagging reminder of the battle your body is fighting. It's like living inside a perpetual sandstorm, but the storm is happening inside your eyeballs. You open your eyes, not to the soft glow of your bedside lamp, but to the harsh, unfiltered brilliance of the Egyptian dawn. The air is thick with the scent of dust and the faint, sweet smell of the Nile. As you step out of your modest mud brick home, the world immediately assaults your most precious sense sight. The very environment you inhabit is a relentless, microscopic sandblaster, eroding your vision grain by tiny grain. It's not just the wind-borne grit. It's the intense, unfiltered UV radiation from a sun that seems to have forgotten how to be anything but absolutely furious. You find yourself constantly shielding your eyes, a habit ingrained from childhood, a futile attempt to protect what feels increasingly vulnerable. This constant abrasion wasn't just uncomfortable, it created tiny lesions on the delicate surface of your conjunctiva and cornea, making your eyes vulnerable to infection. Every scratch was an open door for bacteria and viruses, turning a minor irritation into a serious threat. You'd see people, young and old, with chronically red, weeping eyes, a testament to the relentless assault of the desert. In this ancient world, your eyes aren't just windows to your soul, they are your lifeline. Without them, you are lost, dependent, a burden. The Egyptians, with their profound understanding of life's practicalities and spiritual nuances, grasped this implicitly. Their art, their hieroglyphs, their very mythology, are saturated with the iconography of the eye. The Eye of Horus, the Wajet, a powerful symbol of protection, royal power, and good health, is ubiquitous. It's on amulets, sarcophagi, temple walls everywhere. This isn't just artistic flair, it's a deep-seated acknowledgement of how vital vision was, and how terrifying its loss. You see it painted on the bows of boats, guiding them safely through the waters, and on coffins, ensuring the deceased could see their way through the afterlife. It's almost as if they were trying to visually manifest good eyesight into existence, a collective prayer against the encroaching darkness. And then there's the sun. Oh, the sun. It blazes down from a cloudless sky, an unyielding orb of blinding light. Without modern sunglasses or effective shade, your eyes are constantly exposed to intense ultraviolet UV radiation. This prolonged exposure, and a unique detail you might not immediately consider, is a major contributing factor to conditions like pterygium, a fleshy growth on the white part of the eye that can extend over the cornea and obscure vision. It's your body's attempt to protect itself, a kind of scar tissue forming to shield the delicate inner structures. But in doing so, it ironically steals your sight. It's like building a wall to keep out invaders, only to find the wall itself is blocking your view. But despite this reverence, the reality was grim. Eye diseases were rampant, an epidemic woven into the fabric of daily life. You'd see it everywhere, the telltale redness of conjunctivitis, the inward-turning lashes of trachoma scraping against the cornea, the milky film of cataracts clouding the gaze of the elderly. It was so common, in fact, that it was considered almost a normal part of aging, or even just living. Imagine a world where almost everyone you knew, at some point, suffered from some form of debilitating eye condition. It would be like living in a permanent dust storm. But the dust was inside your eyes. Beyond the physical irritants, the environment was a breeding ground for infectious diseases that specifically targeted the eyes. One of the most devastating was trachoma, caused by the bacterium Chlamydia trachomatis. This wasn't just a minor infection, it was a leading cause of blindness in ancient Egypt. And indeed, throughout the ancient world. You'd see its progression in your neighbors, in your family members, repeated infections leading to inflammation, then scarring on the inside of the eyelid. These scars would contract, pulling the eyelashes inward so they scraped against the cornea with every blink. This condition, trichiasis, was excruciatingly painful, and, over time, the constant abrasion would lead to corneal opacity and irreversible blindness. Imagine the agony of your own eyelashes constantly scratching your eyeball, a torture that never truly ends. Their medical texts, like the Ebers papyrus and the Edwin Smith papyrus, are filled with sections dedicated to ophthalmology. This isn't just a casual mention, it's a significant portion, indicating the sheer volume of eye-related complaints physicians had to contend with. You might visit a local healer, perhaps even a specialist, a physician of the eye, as they were sometimes called. These were not casual practitioners. They were often highly respected. Their skills honed by necessity and observation, even if their underlying theories were, shall we say, a bit creative. It's like your modern-day optometrist, but instead of a fancy machine, they're using a reed pen and a lot of hope. The prevalence of flies, particularly the common housefly and eye gnats, exacerbated the spread of these infections. Remember those buzzing nuisances from the first chapter? They are more than just annoying. They are vectors of disease. They would land on infected eyes, pick up bacteria and discharge, and then fly to another person's eye, depositing the pathogens directly onto the vulnerable surface. It's a relentless, silent chain of transmission, linking one suffering individual to the next. You might try to swat them away, but their sheer numbers and persistence make it a futile effort. It's enough to make you wish for a modern fly screen, or at least a really good ancient Egyptian fly swatter. The very air you breathe, laden with fine sand and dust, acts like a constant irritant. Every gust of wind, every step you take on the unpaved streets, kicks up microscopic particles that lodge themselves in your eyes. And then there are the flies. Oh, the flies. They are everywhere, drawn to moisture, to food, to the very tears that your irritated eyes produce. They alight on your eyelids, crawl across your conjunctiva, and with every landing, they bring with them bacteria, viruses, and a host of other microscopic nasties. It's a constant battle, one you are almost guaranteed to lose. You might try to swat them away, but their persistence is legendary. A tiny, buzzing army determined to colonize your eyeballs. It's enough to make you wish for a pair of modern sunglasses, or at least a really good fly swatter. Another common eye disease was conjunctivitis, often referred to as pink eye. While less severe than trachoma, chronic or repeated bouts of conjunctivitis could still lead to discomfort, inflammation, and increased susceptibility to more serious infections. You'd wake up with sticky, red eyes, the telltale sign of another battle beginning. The lack of sterile practices and clean water for washing only made matters worse, creating a vicious cycle of reinfection. Beyond the environmental factors, there was the lack of basic hygiene as we understand it today. Clean water was precious, and hand washing, while practiced, wasn't the rigorous germ-fighting ritual we now know. Shared tools, crowded living conditions, and the general proximity of people meant that infectious eye diseases spread like wildfire. Trachoma, caused by the bacterium Chlamydia trachomatis, was particularly devastating. It's a cunning enemy, causing repeated infections that lead to scarring on the inside of the eyelid. Over time, these scars contract, pulling the eyelashes inward so they constantly abrade the cornea, a condition known as trichiasis. Each blink is a painful scratch, and eventually the constant damage leads to irreversible blindness. You'd see children with swollen, weeping eyes, a tragic sign of a future shrouded in darkness. Historians still debate the exact prevalence rates of these diseases, but archaeological evidence and textual analysis suggest they were endemic. Mummified remains often show signs of eye pathology, and medical papyri dedicate significant sections to eye ailments, indicating their widespread nature. It's a grim picture, suggesting that a significant portion of the ancient Egyptian population, particularly as they aged, would have experienced some degree of vision impairment. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians fully understood the concept of contagion, but their practices suggest a rudimentary awareness. They certainly knew that certain conditions spread from person to person. You might be advised to avoid someone with red eyes, or to keep your distance from those whose vision was clearly failing. It wasn't a scientific understanding of bacteria, but a practical observation of cause and effect. A folk wisdom passed down through generations. It's like knowing not to touch a hot stove, even if you don't understand thermodynamics. The very lifestyle of the ancient Egyptians contributed to their eye woes. Farmers, working long hours in the fields under the blazing sun, were constantly exposed to dust, sand, and glare. Craftsmen, hunched over their work, often in dimly lit workshops, strained their eyes, leading to fatigue and potentially exacerbating existing conditions. Even the elite, though perhaps less exposed to the elements, were not immune to the infectious diseases spread by flies and poor hygiene. No one was truly safe from the pervasive threat to their vision. Their anatomical knowledge of the eye, while impressive for its time, was still rudimentary by modern standards. They knew the eye had a pupil, an iris, and a white part, and they understood that tears were produced. But the intricate network of nerves, the lens's role in focusing light, the retina's function in sensing it, these were mysteries. They believed, for instance, that the eye was connected directly to the heart, a concept that permeated much of their understanding of the body. This belief influenced their treatments, leading them to concoct remedies that aim to soothe the heart as much as the eye itself. You can almost hear a modern doctor sighing. Well, at least their intentions were good. The Nile itself, while the source of life, also contributed to the problem. Its annual inundation, while fertilizing the land, also created stagnant pools of water where insects could breed, including those that carried eye diseases. The rich alluvial soil, when dry, became another source of fine dust, adding to the airborne irritants. It was a paradox the very river that sustained life also brought with it the seeds of blindness. One common historical fact you'd quickly learn is that the Egyptians were pioneers in many fields of medicine, including surgery. However, when it came to the delicate structures of the eye, their surgical interventions were limited and often risky. They might attempt to remove foreign bodies or even try to couch cataracts, a procedure where the clouded lens is pushed out of the line of sight. This was a brutal, painful, and often unsuccessful procedure, more likely to cause further damage and infection than to restore vision. You'd probably opt for the strange poultices first, thank you very much. One of the lighter jokes you might hear from a seasoned Nile boatman, squinting against the glare, is about a new recruit who complained about the sun. The old man would simply grunt. "Son, if you can still see the horizon, you ain't working hard enough." It's a grim humor reflecting the harsh realities of their visually demanding lives. A unique detail you might stumble upon is their use of kohl, the dark eye paint. While we often associate it with beauty and fashion, kohl had a practical medicinal purpose. It was made from galena lead sulfide and other minerals, and when applied around the eyes, it actually helped to repel flies. The dark pigment also reduced glare from the intense sun. So, while you might think you're just putting on your ancient Egyptian eyeliner, you're actually applying a primitive form of insect repellent and sunscreen. It's a bit like wearing a stylish hat that also keeps the bugs away. The lack of proper sanitation and public health infrastructure also played a significant role. Waste disposal was rudimentary, and crowded living conditions, especially in urban centers, facilitated the rapid spread of infectious diseases. Imagine a bustling market, teeming with people, dust, and flies, where a single infected individual could inadvertently spread disease to dozens of others in a single afternoon. It was a constant uphill battle against unseen enemies. The sheer volume of eye-related ailments meant that treatments were a constant preoccupation. From simple irritations to full-blown blindness, the Egyptians tried everything they could conceive. Their pharmacopoeia was vast, drawing upon plants, minerals, and even animal products. You'd encounter remedies involving honey, which has antiseptic properties, and various plant extracts. But then you'd also hear about concoctions involving human brain, crocodile dung, or bat blood. Yes, you heard that right. Crocodile dung? It makes you wonder how much of their medical practice was based on observation, and how much was just a desperate throw of the dice, hoping anything, would work. It's a testament to their perseverance, if not always their scientific rigor. Beyond the infections, nutritional deficiencies, which we'll delve into more deeply in the next chapter, also contributed to eye problems. A lack of certain vitamins, particularly vitamin A, could lead to night blindness and, in severe cases, irreversible damage to the cornea. While the Egyptians had a varied diet, periods of scarcity or a lack of specific food sources could have led to widespread deficiencies. You might find yourself in a bustling marketplace, overhearing conversations about the latest eye remedy, a new ointment, or a charm whispered to cure the evil eye. The desperation for sight was palpable, a constant undercurrent in their vibrant society. The blind were not necessarily cast out, but their lives were undeniably harder, their opportunities severely limited. They couldn't work in the fields, navigate the crowded streets independently, or participate in many of the daily rituals that defined Egyptian life. Their world, quite literally, became smaller, darker, and more reliant on the kindness of others. Historians still debate the extent to which the ancient Egyptians understood the link between environment, hygiene, and disease transmission. While they certainly observed that certain conditions were more prevalent in specific environments or spread among people, their understanding of germ theory was, of course, non-existent. Their explanations often relied on supernatural causes or imbalances within the body, leading to treatments that address symptoms rather than root causes. The Egyptians' fascination with the eye wasn't just about treating illness, it was about preserving a fundamental aspect of being human. They saw the eye as a symbol of clarity, truth, and divine connection. To lose one's sight was not just a physical affliction, but a spiritual diminishment. This cultural weight added another layer of urgency to their medical efforts. You weren't just trying to see again, you were trying to reclaim your place in the cosmic order. It's a profound thought, isn't it? That your ability to perceive the world around you was so intrinsically linked to your very essence? You might also consider the impact of smoke from cooking fires and indoor lighting. Many homes would have had open fires for cooking, filling the air with smoke and particulate matter that would further irritate the eyes. In a dimly lit interior, your eyes would strain, leading to fatigue and potentially exacerbating existing conditions. It's a slow, insidious assault, chipping away at your vision day by day. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the desert, you reflect on the sheer scale of the challenge they faced. Without microscopes, without germ theory, without a true understanding of anatomy or sterile practices, They were fighting a battle with one hand tied behind their backs. Their remedies, while sometimes containing elements that coincidentally had some benefit, were often based on sympathetic magic, religious belief, or simply trial and error. It's a humbling thought, realizing how much they endured, how much they experimented, all in the earnest hope of dispelling the encroaching darkness. And as you close your eyes, preparing for another day under that relentless sun, you can almost feel the phantom grit, the lingering irritation, a ghostly echo of ancient struggles for sight. Another unique detail is the practice of communal living and sharing of personal items. While not universally true, in many households, towels, bedding, and even eye salves might have been shared, inadvertently facilitating the spread of infectious agents. It's a stark contrast to modern hygiene practices, where personal items are rarely shared precisely to prevent the transmission of disease. You wake to the familiar ache behind your eyes, a dull throb that has become a constant companion. The sand from yesterday's wind still feels like it's grinding against your eyeballs, and the persistent redness is a stark reminder of the battle your body is constantly fighting. Today, you decide, is the day you seek a remedy. You've heard whispers of ancient scrolls, tucked away in the libraries of temples, or the personal collections of esteemed physicians. Scrolls that contain the accumulated wisdom and sometimes the bewildering concoctions of generations. The sheer persistence of these environmental and infectious factors meant that even if a remedy offered temporary relief, the underlying causes remained. You might clear an infection, only for it to return weeks or months later. You might soothe your irritated eyes, only for the sand and sun to resume their relentless assault. It was a constant cycle of suffering and temporary respite, a battle that was almost impossible to win in the long run. You make your way to the house of a local healer, a man known for his knowledge of herbs and his collection of papyri. The air inside his small dwelling is thick with the scent of dried plants, spices, and something vaguely medicinal, perhaps a hint of honey or resin. He greets you with a solemn nod. His own eyes, though aged, seem remarkably clear, a testament, perhaps, to his own remedies, or simply good fortune. You describe your symptoms: the burning, the itching, the feeling of grit, the increasing difficulty in distinguishing faces from a distance. He listens patiently, occasionally humming to himself, his fingers tracing patterns on a worn wooden table. You might hear a slightly more philosophical joke from an old man, his eyes clouded with age, who, when asked what he missed most about his youth, replied, "The days when I could tell a fly from a speck of dust without having to squint." It encapsulates the pervasive nature of eye problems in their society. Then, with a gesture, he unfurls a section of a papyrus scroll. It's old, fragile, its edges frayed, but the hieroglyphs are still remarkably clear. Meticulously drawn? This, he explains, is a copy of a much older text, perhaps even from the time of Imhotep himself, the legendary physician and architect. As you lean closer, trying to decipher the intricate symbols, he begins to translate, his voice a low, soothing drone, perfectly suited for a bedtime story. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, you pull your headcloth tighter, trying to shield your eyes from the last rays of light and the inevitable evening breeze that will stir up more dust. You realize that living in ancient Egypt meant a constant, silent war against the elements and the unseen microbes that sought to steal your sight. Every blink, every tear, every squint was a small skirmish in this lifelong battle. And as you close your eyes, preparing for another night of rest, you can almost feel the phantom grit, the lingering burn, a testament to the relentless, unforgiving environment that shaped not just their lives, but their very vision. The remedies described are a fascinating blend of the practical, the peculiar, and the downright bizarre. Many involve honey. A common historical fact you'd quickly learn was a staple in ancient Egyptian medicine. Honey, with its natural antiseptic and anti-inflammatory properties, was often mixed with other ingredients to create eye salves. You can almost feel the sticky, sweet coolness as he describes a poultice of honey and ground malachite. A green copper ore? The malachite, they believed, had protective qualities, and its green color was thought to be soothing to the eye. You imagine the sensation, a thick, sweet paste smeared gently over your inflamed eyelids. the cool mineral offering a fleeting sense of relief. It sounds messy, but perhaps, just perhaps, it might work. You've battled the sand, squinted against the sun, and perhaps even endured the surgeon's knife. But still, the world around you remains a frustrating blur. You've considered the external forces, the environmental onslaught, but what if the enemy of your sight isn't just outside your body, but within it? What if the very food you eat, or perhaps, more accurately, the food you don't eat, is silently contributing to the dimming of your world? In ancient Egypt, where the bounty of the Nile was celebrated, the subtle interplay between diet and vision was a mystery, a silent thief of sight. Another common ingredient was galena, the lead sulfide that formed the basis of their kohl. Remember that dark eye paint? It wasn't just for fashion. The healer explains that finely ground galena, when mixed with water or oil, was applied not just as a cosmetic, but as a medicinal paste. They believed it could ward off evil spirits that caused eye ailments. And also, more practically, that its dark color could reduce the sun's glare. A unique detail you might find surprising is that recent studies suggest the lead compounds in kohl, when reacting with the skin's natural salts, actually produced nitric oxide. This compound, in very low doses, can stimulate the immune system and help fight bacterial infections. So, your ancient Egyptian eyeliner might have been a primitive form of antibiotic. Who knew looking good could also be good for you? You find yourself sitting with an elder, a wise woman known for her knowledge of herbs and the rhythms of the seasons. Her eyes, though aged, possess a remarkable clarity, and she speaks of the importance of what one consumes. She doesn't speak of vitamins or nutrients as you understand them, but of life force and balance. She observes your pale complexion, your sluggishness, and the persistent night blindness that makes navigating your home after sunset a perilous journey. Her gaze is knowing, suggesting a connection between your internal state and your failing vision. But then the descriptions take a turn for the truly outlandish. The healer points to a passage detailing a remedy for dimness of sight. It involves grinding the brain of a tortoise with honey and applying it to the eyes. You try not to wince. A tortoise brain. The thought alone is enough to make your stomach churn. He continues, unfazed, describing another concoction, the bile of a pig mixed with antimony. Antimony, a metallic element, was also used in eye preparations, often as an astringent. The pig bile, however, adds a certain pungency. You can almost smell the acrid mixture, a far cry from the soothing honey. A common historical fact you'd quickly learn is that the ancient Egyptian diet, while generally rich in grains like barley and emmer wheat, and supplemented by fish from the Nile, fruits, and vegetables, could still be prone to deficiencies, especially during times of scarcity or for certain segments of the population. While the average Egyptian might have eaten reasonably well, a lack of specific food sources, particularly those rich in certain compounds, could have devastating effects on health, including eye health. It's like having a full granary but forgetting to plant the fruit trees. For persistent inflammation, the scroll suggests a mixture of human brain, yes, again, mixed with the excrement of a crocodile. You try to keep a straight face, but the image of applying crocodile dung to your delicate eyes is almost too much. The healer explains, without a hint of irony, that the crocodile was a powerful creature associated with the god Sobek, and thus its waste might contain some of its inherent strength. The logic, you realize, is less about chemistry and more about sympathetic magic. A belief that or that the essence of a creature can be transferred through its parts. It's a bit like believing eating a lion will make you brave. The elder speaks of the importance of seeing in the dark, a direct reference to your anyctalopia, or night blindness. She describes how some animals, like owls, possess this ability naturally, and how certain foods are believed to impart similar qualities. She might suggest consuming liver, particularly the liver of fish or birds. This is a unique detail that, unbeknownst to them, directly addresses a crucial nutritional deficiency, vitamin A. Animal livers are incredibly rich sources of preformed vitamin A, and a diet lacking in these could lead directly to night blindness. The Egyptians didn't understand the biochemical pathway, but they observed the empirical link eat liver. See better at night. It's a remarkable example of practical knowledge preceding scientific understanding. One of the most intriguing aspects of these ancient remedies is the sheer variety of animal products employed. Bat blood for night blindness, lizard excrement for cloudy vision, even the eyes of a pig for various afflictions. The rationale often stemmed from observing the animal's own characteristics. Bats could see in the dark, so their blood might confer that ability. Lizards had keen eyesight, so their droppings might hold the secret. It's a fascinating, if misguided, attempt to understand the natural world and harness its perceived powers. You can almost hear a modern scientist muttering, "Correlation does not imply causation, my friend." Imagine the taste of cooked liver, perhaps grilled over an open fire, a strong, earthy flavor. You might have been reluctant to eat it as a child, but now, with your vision fading as dusk approaches, you would consume it with a newfound desperation, hoping for a flicker of clarity in the encroaching shadows. The healer then points to a section on evil eye and other spiritual causes of blindness. For these, the remedies were less about physical application and more about ritual, incantations, amulets, and offerings to specific deities like Horus or Thoth were prescribed alongside the physical treatments. The Egyptians didn't separate medicine from magic or religion. They were intertwined. A physical ailment could have a spiritual root, and thus a spiritual cure was often necessary. You might be given a small amulet, perhaps a miniature eye of Horus, to wear around your neck, a constant ward against unseen forces. It's a reminder that healing was a holistic endeavor, encompassing body, mind, and spirit. Historians still debate the exact prevalence of vitamin A deficiency in ancient Egypt. While the general diet provided some sources, particularly through green leafy vegetables and certain fruits, the availability could fluctuate with the seasons and economic conditions. Furthermore, the bioavailability of vitamin A from plant sources is often lower than from animal sources. This means that even if you were eating a lot of carrots, which they did have, you might not be absorbing enough of the crucial compounds needed for healthy vision. It's a complex nutritional puzzle, made even harder by the lack of modern scientific tools. As the healer continues, you notice that many of the remedies involve grinding ingredients into a fine powder, then mixing them with a liquid base like water, milk, or beer. The consistency was crucial, as a coarse powder could further irritate the eye. They used pestles and mortars, carefully preparing each ingredient. It was a meticulous process, requiring patience and precision, even if the ingredients themselves were, by modern standards, questionable. Beyond vitamin A, other micronutrient deficiencies could also impact eye health. A lack of B vitamins, for instance, could lead to nerve damage, potentially affecting the optic nerve. While the Egyptian diet was generally diverse, certain groups, particularly the poor or those living in isolated areas, might have had limited access to a full range of foods. Imagine a diet consisting primarily of bread and beer, with little fresh produce or animal protein. This limited intake would leave you vulnerable to a host of health issues, including those affecting your eyes. Historians still debate whether the effectiveness of these remedies was due to genuine medicinal properties, the placebo effect, or simply the natural course of the disease. While some ingredients like honey and certain plant extracts did possess mild antiseptic or anti-inflammatory qualities, the majority of the bizarre components likely did nothing, or worse, caused further irritation or infection. The crocodile dung, for instance, would have been teeming with bacteria. It's a complex puzzle, trying to separate the true healing from the hopeful ritual. The elder also speaks of the wetness of the eye, referring to the importance of tears and the lubrication of the ocular surface. She might suggest foods that are believed to promote inner moisture, perhaps certain fruits like dates or figs, or even specific types of fish. While their understanding was rudimentary, a well-hydrated body, supported by a balanced diet, certainly contributes to overall eye comfort and health. You learn that the application methods were also varied. Sometimes, the paste was simply smeared on the eyelids. Other times, a linen cloth soaked in the liquid remedy was placed over the eyes. For more direct application, a small dropper, perhaps made of reed or bone, might have been used to instill liquid remedies directly into the eye. Imagine the discomfort, the fear of infection, with each drop. It makes you appreciate the sterile eye drops of today. One of the lighter jokes you might hear from a farmer trying to encourage his children to eat their vegetables is about a boy who refused to eat his greens and then couldn't find his own bed in the dark. His father would sigh and say, "See, that's what happens when you don't eat your papyrus." It's a humorous way to highlight the perceived link between diet and vision, even if the scientific understanding was absent. The healer pauses, takes a sip of water, and then continues, describing remedies for specific conditions. For bloodshot eyes, a mixture of red ochre and honey was recommended. The redness of the ochre perhaps meant to counteract the redness of the eye. For granulated eyelids, a condition likely referring to trachoma. They used a variety of astringents and anti-inflammatory agents, though often with limited success. The papyrus speaks of scraping the inner eyelid, a painful procedure that might have offered temporary relief but often exacerbated the scarring. The preparation of food also played a role. Overcooking vegetables, as for instance, could reduce their vitamin content. While the Egyptians were skilled cooks, their methods, often involving boiling or stewing for long periods, might have inadvertently diminished the nutritional value of some ingredients. You might be eating the food, but your body isn't getting all the benefits it needs. One particularly vivid description involves a remedy for a watering ee, which could be anything from a blocked tear duct to a chronic infection. The solution, a concoction of lead, antimony, and the urine of a male donkey. The donkey, a creature of endurance, was perhaps thought to possess a cleansing power. You can almost smell the pungent aroma, a truly unpleasant sensory experience that would certainly make you think twice about complaining about your dry eyes. For children, a lack of adequate nutrition could have particularly severe consequences. Malnutrition in early childhood could lead to permanent damage to the eyes, including xerophthalmia, a progressive drying of the cornea, and conjunctiva due to severe vitamin A deficiency, which ultimately leads to irreversible blindness. You'd see the tragic signs in young children, their eyes dull and clouded, a heartbreaking testament to the silent toll of an inadequate diet. The sheer volume of eye-related remedies in these ancient texts speaks volumes about the prevalence of eye diseases. It wasn't just a minor inconvenience, it was a major public health crisis, demanding constant attention from healers. The Egyptians were pragmatic, and if something seemed to work, even if the underlying reason was misunderstood, they would continue to use it. This empirical approach, combined with their spiritual beliefs, created a unique medical system. Historians still debate the extent to which specific dietary advice was formalized in ancient Egyptian medicine. While medical texts mention various ingredients and their perceived benefits, a comprehensive understanding of nutritional science was, of course, centuries away. Much of the dietary wisdom would have been passed down through generations, based on empirical observation and traditional beliefs, rather than scientific analysis. As the sun climbs higher, casting sharper shadows, you realize the depth of their desperation. To lose sight in ancient Egypt was to lose almost everything. Thus, no remedy was too strange, no ingredient too repulsive, if it offered even a glimmer of hope. The healer closes the scroll, its ancient wisdom now a little less mysterious, a little more human. You thank him, your eyes still aching, but now filled with a new understanding of the lengths to which ancient people went to preserve their precious vision. The journey for sight, you realize, was as long and winding as the Nile itself, and often just as murky. You might also consider the impact of food preservation methods. Drying, salting, and fermenting were common ways to store food, but these processes could also affect nutrient content. While essential for survival, these methods might have inadvertently contributed to subtle, chronic deficiencies that manifested in various health problems, including eye issues. You leave the healer's dwelling, the lingering scent of strange poultices still clinging to your robes. The physical remedies, though intriguing, felt somehow incomplete, a battle fought only on the surface of the skin. In ancient Egypt, where the line between the tangible and the mystical was beautifully blurred, it was understood that not all ailments stemmed from a simple imbalance of humors or an environmental assault. Sometimes, the darkness that crept into your eyes was not merely a physical affliction, but a spiritual one, a curse, or the malevolent gaze of an unseen entity. And for these deeper maladies, you knew. You had to turn to the realm of spells, incantations, and divine intervention. The elder might also speak of the importance of clean food and water, implicitly acknowledging the link between hygiene and health. Contaminated food could lead to gastrointestinal illnesses, which in turn could impair nutrient absorption, creating a vicious cycle that further exacerbated any existing deficiencies. You would be advised to eat only fresh produce and to drink water from reliable sources. A practical piece of advice that held true then as it does now. As evening descends, painting the sky in hues of deep orange and purple, you make your way to a different kind of practitioner, a priest-magician, someone who understood the intricate dance between the earthly and the divine. Their home, or perhaps a secluded corner of a temple, feels different. There's no pungent smell of herbs, but rather the faint aroma of incense, a quiet hum in the air that suggests unspoken power. The priest-magician, their face serene, their eyes holding a knowing depth, invites you to sit. They don't ask about the grit or the redness. They ask about your dreams, your fears, any recent misfortunes that might have befallen you. For them, your failing sight is a symptom, not the root cause. Another unique detail is the symbolic significance of certain foods. For example, the lotus flower, while sometimes used in remedies, was also a symbol of rebirth and creation. Consuming it, or even just being near it, might have been believed to impart its life-giving properties, including those beneficial to sight. This blend of practical nutrition and symbolic belief was characteristic of ancient Egyptian thought. A common historical fact you'd quickly grasp is that magic and medicine were not separate disciplines in ancient Egypt. They were two sides of the same healing coin. A physician might prescribe a honey poultice, while simultaneously instructing you to recite a specific incantation or wear a protective amulet. The Egyptians believed that illness could be caused by malevolent spirits, angry gods, or even the evil eye cast by a jealous neighbor. Therefore, a purely physical remedy would be insufficient if the true cause was spiritual. It's like trying to fix a leaky roof without addressing the storm outside. The relationship between overall health and eye health was also understood, albeit vaguely. A person weakened by disease or chronic illness would naturally have less robust defenses against eye infections and might be more susceptible to nutritional deficiencies. The elder might emphasize the importance of a strong body, believing it to be the foundation for strong eyes. The priest-magician begins by preparing the space. They might sprinkle natron, a natural salt, around you, purifying the area. They light small lamps, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere both solemn and mystical. You are asked to close your eyes, to focus on your breath, to quiet the clamor of the outside world. This isn't just about physical relaxation, it's about opening yourself to the unseen energies. You might hear a slightly more exasperated joke from a mother trying to feed her picky child, who, after refusing a plate of greens, declared, "I don't want to see my vegetables." The mother would sigh and retort, "Then you'll soon not be seeing anything else either." It's a universal struggle, it seems, to get children to eat what's good for them. Then, the incantations begin. The words are ancient, rhythmic, spoken in a low, resonant voice that seems to vibrate through the very air. They invoke the names of powerful deities associated with healing and protection. Horus, whose eye was restored after being torn out by Set, is a frequent invocation. Thoth, the god of wisdom, writing, and magic, is also called upon. His knowledge believed to hold the key to unlocking the secrets of healing. You hear the names of Isis, the great sorceress, and Sekhmet, the fierce goddess of healing and destruction, both capable of both inflicting and curing disease. The words are not just sounds, they are believed to be potent forces, shaping reality, compelling the gods to act on your behalf. It's a bit like singing to your plants, but with much higher stakes. As the day fades, and the elders' words about food and sight settle in your mind, you begin to see your meals not just as sustenance, but as potential allies in your fight for vision. You consider the humble fish from the Nile, the green leaves of the vegetables, the sweet dates, and the precious liver. You realize that sometimes, the most profound remedies are not found in exotic potions or painful surgeries, but in the simple, everyday choices you make about what you put into your body. You close your eyes, imagining a plate filled with vibrant, life-giving foods, hoping that with each bite, a little more clarity will return to your world. The ancient Egyptians, in their earnest efforts, we're unknowingly battling a foe that often hid in plain sight, or rather, in plain bite. A unique detail you might observe is the use of specific gestures and rituals accompanying these spells. The priest-magician might trace symbols in the air, or make specific hand movements. Channeling energy, they might pass an amulet over your eyes, or touch your forehead with a small, consecrated object. These actions are not merely symbolic. They are believed to be integral to the spell's efficacy, directing the magical forces where they are most needed. You might feel a slight pressure, a warmth, or simply a deep sense of calm as these rituals unfold around you. You've explored the strange remedies, endured the painful hopes of surgery, sought divine intervention, and even considered the silent sabotage of your diet. Yet, as the days bleed into weeks, and the blur in your vision deepens, a chilling realization begins to settle in your world is shrinking. The vibrant hues of the marketplace, the intricate patterns on the temple walls, the familiar faces of your loved ones all are slowly dissolving into a hazy, indistinct canvas. This isn't just a personal affliction, it's a profound shift in your very existence, a redefinition of your place in ancient Egyptian society, for a specific type of blindness, perhaps one that came on suddenly and without obvious physical cause. The priest-magician might perform a ritual to open the eyes. This might involve a symbolic washing of your face with consecrated water, or even a gentle touch to your eyelids with a specially prepared oil, all while reciting powerful words intended to dispel the spiritual blindness. It's a performance, yes, but one imbued with profound belief and intention. You try to navigate your familiar home, but the furniture seems to shift. The doorways narrow, and the steps become treacherous. What was once effortless is now a perilous journey. You stumble, you grope, your fingers brushing against cold walls, seeking guidance where your eyes once led. The simple act of pouring water from a jar becomes a test of touch and sound, the splash a warning that you've overfilled it. Your independence, once a given, slowly erodes, replaced by a growing reliance on others. It's like trying to walk through a familiar room in complete darkness. You know the layout. But every step is fraught with uncertainty. The concept of the evil eye was particularly feared. If someone harbored ill will towards you, their jealous or malicious gaze could, they believed, inflict harm, including blindness. To counteract this, protective spells and amulets were paramount. You might be given an Eye of Horus amulet, not just to wear, but to sleep with, to keep under your pillow. Its watchful gaze warding off any malevolent influences that might try to steal your sight while you slept. Remember that omnipresent symbol, its power was not just symbolic, but actively protective. A common historical fact you'd quickly grasp is that in ancient Egypt, physical ability was intrinsically linked to one's role in society. For farmers, sight was crucial for tending crops and navigating irrigation channels. For craftsmen, keen vision was essential for intricate work, whether carving stone, painting hieroglyphs, or weaving fine linen. Even for scribes, the ability to read and write was paramount. The loss of sight, therefore, often meant the loss of your livelihood, pushing you to the margins of economic productivity. You might have been a skilled potter, shaping clay with nimble fingers, but without the ability to see the subtle imperfections or the precise curves, your craft becomes impossible. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians genuinely believed in the literal power of these spells to cure physical ailments, or if they served more as psychological support, offering hope and comfort in a world where medical understanding was limited. It's likely a combination of both. In a time before germ theory, when diseases seemed to strike arbitrarily, attributing them to supernatural forces provided a framework for understanding and, crucially, for intervention. If a god was angry, perhaps a spell could appease them. If a demon caused the illness, perhaps an incantation could banish it. Your social standing, too, begins to shift. While the blind were not necessarily ostracized, their opportunities for marriage, for social engagement, and for participating in public life were significantly curtailed. You might find yourself excluded from communal feasts, from lively storytelling sessions, simply because the visual cues and interactions that define social gatherings become inaccessible. The world, once a bustling tapestry of faces and gestures, becomes a symphony of voices, but one where you are always listening from the periphery. You might be given specific instructions to follow after the ritual. Perhaps you are to avoid certain foods, or to visit a specific temple at a certain time of day. You might be told to repeat a short incantation every morning as the sun rises, or to make an offering of bread and beer to a particular deity. These post-ritual actions are crucial, maintaining the magical momentum and ensuring the spell's continued effect. It's not a one-and-done deal, it's an ongoing commitment to the magical path to healing. A unique detail you might observe is the surprising resilience and adaptability of some blind individuals. While many faced severe hardship, some managed to find new roles or adapt their existing skills. Perhaps you learn to play a musical instrument, relying on your keen sense of hearing and touch. Or perhaps you become a storyteller, your memory sharpened by the absence of visual distractions, your voice weaving tales that captivate listeners. There are even rare instances in ancient texts that hint at blind individuals serving in temple roles, where their spiritual insight might have been valued above physical sight. It's a testament to the human spirit's capacity to find light even in the darkest corners. The priest-magician might also use dream interpretation as part of the diagnostic process. Dreams were considered messages from the gods or the deceased, offering clues about the cause of an illness or the path to recovery. You might be asked to recount your dreams in detail, searching for symbols or omens that could shed light on your failing vision. It's a fascinating blend of ancient psychology and spiritual insight, a recognition that the mind and spirit play a role in physical well-being. Historians still debate the extent of social welfare provisions for the blind in ancient Egypt. While there's evidence of charitable acts and community support, there wasn't a formalized system of state-sponsored care as we understand it today. Much of the support would have come from family, neighbors, or religious institutions. You would rely heavily on the kindness of your kin, their hands guiding you, their voices describing the world you could no longer fully perceive. It's a stark reminder of a time when personal misfortune was a collective burden, shared within the immediate community. One of the lighter jokes you might hear in this context, perhaps from a weary temple scribe, is about a man who tried to cure his night blindness by sleeping with a bat under his pillow. When asked if it worked, he replied, "I still can't see in the dark, but now I have an excellent sense of echolocation and a terrible bat problem." It's a reminder that even in serious times, a little humor could break the tension. The psychological toll of blindness is immense. The loss of independence, the constant frustration, the feeling of being a burden all weigh heavily on your spirit. You might experience periods of deep despair, of anger at the gods, at fate, at the very sun that once illuminated your world and now seems only to mock your darkness. The vibrant colors of your memories begin to fade, replaced by the dull, unyielding gray of your present reality. It's a profound grief, a mourning for the world you once knew. For conditions like cataracts, which were understood as a clouding of the eye, spells might be directed at dispelling this mist, invoking deities associated with clarity and light. The words would paint a picture of the darkness lifting, of the world becoming sharp and vibrant once more. It's a powerful visualization, even if the physical reality remains stubbornly opaque. One of the lighter jokes you might hear from a sympathetic neighbor trying to cheer you up is about a blind man who walked into a wall. When asked if he was hurt, he simply shrugged and said, "No, but I think I just found my new favorite shortcut." It's a small attempt to find humor in hardship, a way to cope with the often cruel hand dealt by fate. The use of specific materials in magical rituals was also common. Water from the Nile, believed to be sacred and life-giving, might be used in washes. Incense, with its rising smoke, was thought to carry prayers and intentions directly to the heavens. Even certain types of wood or stone, imbued with particular energies, might be incorporated into the rituals. Everything had a purpose, a connection to the greater cosmic order. Your interactions with the world become primarily auditory and tactile. The rustle of linen, the murmur of voices, the splash of water, the scent of baking bread. These become your new guides, your new ways of experiencing the world. You learn to distinguish people by the sound of their footsteps, the cadence of their speech, the unique scent of their presence. Your fingers become your eyes, tracing the textures of pottery, the roughness of stone, the smoothness of polished wood. It's a world of heightened senses, but one that is also profoundly limited. You might also encounter spells designed to protect against specific eye-related dangers, such as the glare of the sun or the sting of insects. These wouldn't necessarily cure an existing condition, but rather prevent future ones. It's a proactive approach to magical health, a spiritual sunscreen against the harsh realities of Egyptian life. For children born blind, or who lost their sight early in life, the challenges were even greater. Their development would be different, their learning pathways adapted. They might never learn to read hieroglyphs, or to participate in the same games as their sighted peers. Their education would focus on practical skills that did not require sight, or on developing their other senses. It's a heartbreaking thought. A childhood lived in perpetual twilight, without the visual richness that most take for granted. The priest-magician might also engage in a process of divination, using methods like observing the flight of birds, interpreting patterns in sand, or even reading the entrails of sacrificed animals, to gain insight into your condition and the most effective magical path to healing. This wasn't just guesswork, it was a highly formalized system of interpreting divine will, a way of asking the universe for guidance. Historians still debate the specific legal status of the blind. While there are no explicit laws detailing their rights or restrictions, their practical limitations would have implicitly shaped their legal standing, particularly regarding property ownership, contracts, and participation in legal proceedings. You would likely need a sighted representative or guardian to assist you in many formal matters, further diminishing your autonomy. Another unique detail is the concept of apotropaic magic, which involved using symbols or rituals to ward off evil. Beyond the Eye of Horus, you might see figures of dwarf gods like Bez, whose grotesque appearance was believed to frighten away malevolent spirits, or Taweret, the hippopotamus goddess, who protected pregnant women and children, often depicted with protective amulets. These figures, though sometimes fearsome, were ultimately benevolent guardians, their power invoked to keep you safe, including your precious eyesight. The fear of blindness was so pervasive that it was often used as a curse or a threat in ancient texts. To wish blindness upon an enemy was to wish upon them a profound and debilitating punishment, a fate almost worse than death. This societal fear underscores the devastating impact that the loss of sight had on an individual's life and prospects. The process could be lengthy, requiring multiple sessions, repeated incantations, and a steadfast belief on your part. It wasn't a quick fix, but a journey of spiritual alignment. You were encouraged to maintain a positive outlook, as your own belief in the magic was considered a vital component of its success. Doubt, they believed, could weaken the spell, allowing the darkness to creep back in. It's a bit like trying to bake a cake without believing in ovens. You might also consider the impact on family dynamics. Your family would bear the primary responsibility for your care and support. This could place a significant economic and emotional burden on them, especially in a society where every pair of hands was valuable. Your siblings might have to take on extra work. Your parents might worry constantly about your future. It's a shared burden, a collective struggle against the encroaching darkness. Historians still debate whether the priest-magicians genuinely believed in the literal efficacy of every spell, or if there was an element of practical psychology at play. It's likely that they, like their physician counterparts, observed outcomes. If a ritual seemed to coincide with an improvement, it reinforced their belief in its power. If it didn't, perhaps the patient's faith was lacking, or a more powerful spirit was at play. The system was robust enough to account for both success and failure, ensuring its continued relevance. Another unique detail is the use of guide animals. While not as common or formalized as modern guide dogs, there is some anecdotal evidence and artistic depictions that suggest the use of trained animals, particularly dogs, to assist individuals with disabilities, including the blind. Imagine the comfort and companionship of a loyal dog, its soft fur a tactile anchor, its gentle tug a silent guide through the bustling streets. It's a beautiful image of interspecies cooperation, born out of necessity. You might hear a slightly darker, more cynical joke about a man who paid a fortune for a spell to restore his sight, only to find he could still only see in shades of gray. When he complained, the priest-magician simply shrugged and said, "Ah, but now you can see all the shades of gray." It highlights the often unpredictable nature of ancient remedies, both magical and medicinal. The religious and spiritual interpretations of blindness were also significant. While some saw it as a divine punishment, others viewed it as a sign of spiritual insight, a detachment from the material world that allowed for deeper connection with the divine. priests or seers who were blind might have been revered for their perceived inner vision, their physical darkness seen as a gateway to spiritual enlightenment. It's a complex duality, where a debilitating condition could also be seen as a path to a higher purpose. As the stars begin to pepper the inky blackness of the Egyptian sky, you feel a subtle shift within you. Whether it's the power of the incantations, the soothing rhythm of the priest-magician's voice, or simply the profound sense of hope that has been rekindled. You feel a lightness, a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, the unseen forces are beginning to work on your behalf. The physical world might still be a blur, but in the depths of your spirit, a tiny spark of clarity ignites. You close your eyes, not with a familiar ache, but with a quiet anticipation, wondering what the morning light might reveal. The magic of ancient Egypt, you realize it was not just about grand rituals, it was about the quiet belief that permeated every aspect of life. A belief that even the deepest darkness could be pierced by the right words, the right intention, and the watchful eyes of the gods. You might hear a slightly more poignant joke from a blind poet, who, when asked how he could write such vivid descriptions of the world, replied, "My eyes may be closed, but my imagination is wide open, and it sees far more than your mere sight ever could." It speaks to the power of the human spirit to transcend physical limitations and find new ways of experiencing and expressing the world. You awaken, the morning light filtering through the small window of your home, and for a fleeting moment, you feel a surge of hope. The priest-magician's incantations from last night still echo in your mind. A soothing rhythm. But as you try to focus on the intricate patterns of the woven mat on your floor, the familiar blur returns, the world still stubbornly indistinct. The magic, it seems, works slowly. Or perhaps it needs a little encouragement. And in ancient Egypt, when prayers and poultices fell short, there was always one more desperate, terrifying option, the blade. As the sun sets, casting long, deep shadows that merge with your own internal darkness, you feel the weight of your new reality. The world has not disappeared, but it has transformed, becoming a landscape of sound, touch, and memory. The vibrant, bustling life of ancient Egypt continues around you, but you are now navigating it from a different perspective, a perspective shaped by hardship, resilience, and the quiet dignity of enduring a profound loss. You close your eyes, not just to sleep, but to retreat into the inner world that remains, a world where the images of your past still flicker. Even as the present remains, shrouded in a gentle, unyielding blur, you've heard the whispers, the hushed tales of those who dared to undergo the physician's knife. It's not a path for the faint of heart, for the instruments are crude, the understanding of anatomy limited, and the concept of sterility, as you know it, utterly non-existent. Yet the desperation for sight, for the ability to navigate your world independently, can drive a person to extraordinary lengths. You decide to seek out a surgeon, a practitioner of the most invasive and perhaps most dangerous form of ancient Egyptian medicine. You've witnessed the relentless assault of the environment, the desperate attempts at healing, the profound impact of diet, and the shrinking world of the sightless. You've seen the earnestness, the ingenuity, and the sheer tenacity with which ancient Egyptians approached the problem of blindness. Yet, as you reflect on the strange concoctions, the risky surgeries, and the powerful incantations, a sobering truth begins to emerge despite all their efforts. Despite their deep reverence for the eye, their understanding of its true workings was fundamentally flawed. And it is this flawed logic, this inherent misunderstanding, that ultimately rendered many of their most fervent cures futile. You find him in a small, well-lit courtyard, surrounded by various tools laid out on a clean linen cloth. They gleam in the sunlight, sharp and unnervingly simple obsidian blades, bronze probes, small hooks, and spatulas. A common historical fact you'd quickly realize is that ancient Egyptian surgeons were remarkably skilled for their time, capable of setting broken bones, excising tumors, and even performing trepanation drilling holes in the skull. However, the delicate, intricate structures of the eye presented a challenge that often pushed the limits of their knowledge and their tools. You sit by the Nile watching the sun glint off the water, and try to piece together the fragments of knowledge you've gathered. You recall the healer's scrolls filled with remedies that mix the genuinely beneficial with the utterly bizarre. You remember the surgeon's steady hand, guided by observation rather than a complete anatomical map. And you recall the priest-magician's powerful words, aimed at unseen forces rather than the microscopic invaders. It's like trying to fix a complex machine with only a vague idea of what's inside. You might press some buttons, turn some levers, but without the blueprint, true repair remains elusive. The surgeon, a man with calloused hands and a steady gaze, examines your eyes. He gently pulls down your lower eyelid, peering closely at the inflamed conjunctiva, and then asks you to follow his finger, noting the tremor in your gaze. He speaks of clouds within the eye, a direct reference to cataracts, or perhaps granulations on the inner lid, a common description for trachoma. His voice is calm, reassuring, but the glint of the bronze instruments sends a shiver down your spine. A common historical fact you'd quickly grasp is that ancient Egyptian anatomy, while impressive for its time, was largely based on external observation and rudimentary dissection, often limited by religious taboos surrounding the human body. When it came to the eye, their understanding was particularly constrained. They knew it was an organ for sight, that it had a pupil and an iris, and that tears kept it moist. But the intricate optics of the lens, the light-sensing function of the retina, the complex neural pathways connecting the eye to the brain, these were mysteries, realms of speculation rather than scientific understanding. They believed, for instance, that the eye was directly connected to the heart, a concept that influenced many of their treatments, leading them to concoct remedies that aim to soothe the heart as much as the eye itself. It's a bit like believing your car's engine is connected to the radio. You might try to fix a flat tire by tuning a different station. For conditions like trachoma, where the eyelashes turn inward and scratch the cornea, the surgeon might propose a procedure known as epilation. This is simply the removal of the offending eyelashes. He would use fine bronze tweezers, plucking each inverted lash, one by painful one. You can almost feel the sharp sting, the tearing of the hair follicle, followed by a momentary relief as the abrasive lash is gone. It's a temporary fix, of course, as the lashes would eventually grow back, often with the same inward curl, leading to a cycle of repeated, agonizing plucking. It's like trying to empty the Nile with a bucket. You might get some water out, but the river keeps flowing. This fundamental misunderstanding meant that many of their treatments were based on sympathetic magic, or a superficial understanding of symptoms, rather than a deep grasp of underlying pathology. For example, for red eyes, they might prescribe red ochre, believing that the color itself would counteract the redness. For cloudy vision, they might use substances that were themselves opaque, hoping that a similar property would somehow dispel the cloudiness in the eye. This logic, while intuitive in a pre-scientific age, rarely translated into effective cures. A more drastic measure for trichiasis was cauterization. Here, the surgeon would use a heated instrument to burn the hair follicles, preventing the lashes from growing back. Imagine the searing heat, the smell of burning flesh, the involuntary flinching as the red-hot metal approaches your eye. The pain would be intense, but the promise of permanent relief from the constant scratching might outweigh the immediate agony. This procedure, while brutal, could sometimes be effective in preventing recurrence, though it carried significant risks of scarring and further damage to the eyelid. Historians still debate the extent to which the Egyptians distinguished between different types of eye diseases. While their papyri list various eye conditions, their classifications were often based on observable symptoms rather than specific causes. Dimness of sight could encompass anything from cataracts to nutritional deficiencies to optic nerve damage, and all might receive a similar generalized treatment. This lack of precise diagnosis meant that even if a remedy had a chance of working for one condition, it would be entirely ineffective for another, leading to widespread failures. But the most audacious and terrifying eye surgery they attempted was for cataracts, which they called waterfalls or clouds within the eye. The procedure was known as couching. This involved using a sharp instrument, often a needle-like probe made of bronze or obsidian, to physically push the clouded lens out of the line of sight, displacing it into the vitreous humor at the back of the eye. The goal was not to remove the lens, but simply to move it, allowing light to reach the retina once more. You remember the tortoise brain remedy for night blindness? While the empiric observation that liver helped night vision was correct due to vitamin A, The leap to tortoise brain was based on a flawed analogy rather than a scientific understanding of nutritional biochemistry. The Egyptians didn't know about vitamins, they knew about effects. If eating an animal that could see in the dark seemed to help, why not try its brain? It's a logical step in a world without microscopes or chemical analysis, but one that ultimately leads down a dead-end street. You would be instructed to lie still, perhaps given a strong sedative like opium or mandrake root to dull the pain, though the effects would be limited. The surgeon would hold your eyelid open, perhaps with a small hook, and then, with agonizing precision, insert the instrument into the eye, just behind the iris. You would feel a sharp, piercing pain, a sensation of pressure, and then, if the procedure was successful, a sudden, albeit blurry, return of light. It's a moment of profound hope, quickly followed by the crushing reality of intense pain and the terrifying uncertainty of infection. The concept of infection was also poorly understood. While they observed that certain conditions spread, they didn't grasp the microscopic world of bacteria and viruses. Their remedies, therefore, often lacked true antiseptic properties. Or worse, introduced new pathogens? Remember the crocodile dung poultice. While perhaps intended for its symbolic power or perceived cleansing properties, it would have been teeming with harmful microorganisms, likely exacerbating infections rather than curing them. It's like trying to clean a wound with mud. You might feel like you're doing something, but you're only making it worse. Historians still debate the success rate of couching. While some patients undoubtedly experienced a temporary improvement in vision, the long-term outcomes were often disastrous. The displaced lens could cause inflammation, glaucoma, or retinal detachment. And then there was the ever-present danger of infection. Without sterile instruments or antibiotics, any breach of the eye's delicate defenses was an open invitation for bacteria to wreak havoc. A successful couching might grant you a few weeks or months of improved sight, only for it to be snatched away by a raging infection that could lead to complete, irreversible blindness, or worse, the loss of the eye itself. It's like winning a race only to trip at the finish line. One of the lighter jokes you might hear from a cynical physician after a particularly frustrating day is about a patient who complained his eye remedy wasn't working. The physician, exasperated, replied, "Of course it's not working. You're supposed to eat the bat, not just wave it at your eye." It highlights the often absurd nature of some of the treatments, even to those who practice them. A unique detail about these surgeries is that they were often performed by specialized physicians, sometimes referred to as oculists. These individuals would have gained their skills through apprenticeship and extensive practice, likely on cadavers or perhaps even on animals before attempting such delicate procedures on humans. Their knowledge, though limited by modern standards, was accumulated through generations of empirical observation, a testament to their dedication in a field fraught with peril. The surgical attempts, while demonstrating remarkable skill for their time, were also hampered by this flawed understanding. Couching cataracts, for instance, was a brutal procedure that displaced the lens rather than removing it. This often led to severe complications like inflammation, glaucoma, and retinal detachment, ultimately causing more harm than good. Without sterile techniques, every incision was an open invitation for a deadly infection. You can almost hear a modern ophthalmologist sighing, "Bless their hearts, but oh, the infections." One of the lighter jokes you might hear among the medical students of the time, trying to cope with the grim realities, might be about a surgeon who accidentally couched his own thumb. When asked how he managed it, he'd sigh and say, "Well, it certainly improved my vision of the operating table." It's a dark humor, but a necessary one in a profession where every procedure was a gamble. The reliance on magic and divine intervention, while offering psychological comfort and hope, also diverted resources and attention from more empirical, effective treatments. While the Egyptians were pragmatic, their deep spiritual beliefs meant that a significant portion of their healing efforts were directed towards appeasing gods or banishing demons, rather than addressing the physical causes of disease. It's like trying to bail out a sinking boat by praying to the rain god. It might make you feel better, but the water keeps coming in. For foreign bodies lodged in the eye, the surgeon might use a small, spoon-shaped spatula or a fine probe to carefully remove the irritant. This was a more common and generally safer procedure, though still fraught with the risk of scratching the cornea or introducing infection. You can imagine the relief as a stubborn piece of grit, which had been tormenting you for days, is finally extracted. leaving your eye feeling raw but mercifully clear. Historians still debate the extent to which ancient Egyptian physicians engaged in critical evaluation of their remedies. While they undoubtedly observed outcomes, the lack of controlled studies, statistical analysis, and a scientific method meant that true efficacy was difficult to ascertain. A patient might improve due to the placebo effect, or simply the natural course of the disease, and this improvement would be attributed to the remedy, regardless of its true medicinal value. It's a classic case of correlation not equaling causation, a trap that even modern medicine sometimes falls into. The post-operative care was as rudimentary as the surgery itself. The eye would be bandaged, often with linen soaked in honey or other antiseptic solutions. You would be instructed to rest, to avoid bright light, and to keep the area clean. Though clean in ancient Egypt was a relative term, the healing process would be slow, painful, and often complicated by secondary infections. You would live in constant fear of the throbbing pain returning, a sign that the darkness was once again encroaching. The limited availability of effective pain relief and anesthesia also meant that invasive procedures were excruciatingly painful, leading to patient non-compliance and making delicate surgeries even more challenging. Imagine trying to perform a precise eye surgery on a fully conscious, writhing patient. It's a recipe for disaster, further diminishing the already slim chances of success. Historians still debate whether there was a standardized curriculum for these surgical procedures, or if knowledge was passed down primarily through direct apprenticeship. The Edwin Smith papyrus, while detailing various injuries and their treatments, is less explicit on the step-by-step surgical techniques for the eye, suggesting that much of the practical knowledge was transmitted orally and through hands-on training. Another unique detail is the concept of humors or bodily fluids, which, while not as formalized as in later Greek medicine, had an influence on Egyptian thought. They believed that imbalances in these fluids could lead to illness, including eye diseases. Treatments would sometimes aim to restore this balance through purgatives, emetics, or bloodletting, methods that had little to no direct impact on the actual eye condition. It's a holistic approach, but one based on an incomplete understanding of human physiology. You might also encounter attempts to treat pterygium, a growth on the conjunctiva that can extend over the cornea and impair vision. The surgeon might attempt to excise this growth using a sharp blade, carefully cutting it away from the surface of the eye. This, too, was a delicate procedure, requiring a steady hand and precise movements, as any slip could lead to severe damage. The wound would then be dressed, and you would hope that the growth would not return. The sheer volume of eye diseases meant that physicians were constantly overwhelmed, often resorting to a trial and error approach. They would try various remedies, hoping that something, anything, would stick. This scattergun approach, while understandable in the face of widespread suffering, meant that effective treatments were often buried amidst a multitude of ineffective or even harmful ones. The very concept of pain management in ancient Egypt was primitive. While they had sedatives like opium and mandrake, their understanding of anesthesia was limited. You would be awake, acutely aware of the surgeon's movements, feeling every cut, every probe, every agonizing manipulation. Your only recourse would be to grit your teeth, to focus on the promise of restored sight, and to pray to the gods for strength and a swift hand. It's a testament to the human spirit's capacity for endurance, a willingness to suffer immense pain for a chance at a better life. You might hear a slightly more philosophical joke from an old scribe, his eyes clouded with age, who, after trying countless remedies, quipped, "I've put so many strange things in my eyes, I'm starting to think my vision is clearer when they're closed." It speaks to the often disappointing results of their earnest efforts. Another unique detail is the psychological impact of these procedures. The fear of blindness was so profound that people were willing to endure incredible suffering for even a slim chance of recovery. The act of surrendering your eye to the surgeon's knife, trusting your most precious sense to another's hand, must have been an act of immense courage, or perhaps profound desperation. It highlights the stark realities of life in an age without modern medical miracles. The lack of a germ theory meant that hygiene, while practiced to some extent, was not understood in terms of preventing microscopic infections. Instruments were not sterilized, hands were not rigorously washed, and wounds were not properly protected from environmental pathogens. This meant that even a successful surgical procedure could quickly turn deadly due to secondary infections. undoing any potential benefit. You might hear a slightly more philosophical joke, perhaps from a patient recovering from a couching procedure, who, when asked if he could see clearly, replied, "I can see the surgeon's bill perfectly, and that's clear enough to make me wish I was blind again." It captures the blend of hope and the often harsh practicalities of ancient medical care. Historians still debate the influence of religious dogma on medical practice. While the Egyptians were pragmatic, their deep reverence for the gods and their belief in supernatural causes of illness meant that religious rituals and magical spells often took precedence over, or were intertwined with, purely physical treatments. This blend, while culturally rich, sometimes hindered the development of a purely empirical, scientific approach to medicine. As the sun begins to set, casting long, dramatic shadows across the surgeon's courtyard, you feel a profound sense of exhaustion. Whether you've undergone a procedure or merely witnessed one, the experience leaves an indelible mark. The thought of a sharp blade near your eye, the raw courage it must take to submit to such an ordeal, fills you with a quiet awe. You realize that while their methods were primitive and often ineffective, the ancient Egyptians' relentless pursuit of healing, even through painful cuts and desperate hopes, speaks volumes about their enduring spirit and their profound desire to see the world, no matter the cost. You close your eyes, not just to sleep, but to escape the lingering images of gleaming bronze and the phantom ache of a world seen through a haze of pain and hope. The very environmental factors that caused eye disease, the sand, the sun, the flies, were relentless. Even if a treatment offered temporary relief, the patient would return to the same harsh conditions, often leading to recurrence. It was a constant battle against an environment that was fundamentally hostile to eye health. A battle they were destined to lose without a deeper understanding of prevention. The memory of the surgeon's gleaming tools and the phantom ache in your eyes still lingers. A stark reminder of the limits of mortal hands. You've tried the poultices, whispered the spells, and even considered the blade. Yet the world remains stubbornly veiled. In ancient Egypt, when all else failed, when the physical and magical remedies offered only fleeting hope, there was one final, profound recourse: the divine. You turn your gaze towards the towering temples, the sacred precincts where the gods themselves were believed to walk among men, where healing was not merely a medical act, but a sacred communion. As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of resignation, you feel a profound sense of empathy for the ancient Egyptians. Their efforts were immense, their dedication unwavering, but they were fighting a battle with incomplete knowledge and limited tools. They were trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing, and the pieces they had were often mislabeled. You realize that their failures were not due to a lack of effort or intelligence, but to the inherent limitations of their scientific understanding. And as you close your eyes, the phantom blur still lingering, you can almost hear the echoes of their earnest, if ultimately futile, cries for clarity in a world that stubbornly remained shrouded in a haze of misunderstanding. You make your pilgrimage to a temple dedicated to a deity known for healing. Perhaps Sekhmet, the fierce lioness goddess, who could both inflict and cure disease, or Imhotep, the deified physician, whose wisdom was believed to transcend human understanding. The air within the temple walls is cool, hushed, filled with the scent of incense and the faint echo of chanting. Priests and priestesses move with a quiet dignity, their roles encompassing not just spiritual guidance, but often the administration of medical care. Here, the distinction between physician and priest blurs entirely. They are divine healers, mediating between earthly suffering and celestial power. You've journeyed through the ancient Egyptian landscape, felt the sting of the sand, squinted against the sun, and peered into the earnest, yet often misguided, attempts to cure blindness. You've seen the physician's strange poultices, the priest-magician's whispered spells, the surgeon's terrifying blade, and the silent toll of an inadequate diet. Now, as the final rays of the Egyptian sun stretch long across the desert, painting the sky in a palette of deep purples and fading oranges, you begin to reflect on the enduring legacy of these ancient struggles, realizing how far medicine has come, yet still acknowledging the echoes of their earnest, if ultimately futile, efforts. A common historical fact you'd quickly learn is that temples in ancient Egypt often served as centers of healing, not just worship. They housed sanatoria or sleep temples where the sick would come to seek cures, often through incubation, a practice of sleeping within the sacred precinct in the hope of receiving a divine dream or vision that would reveal the cure. You imagine lying on a simple mat in a quiet chamber, the rhythmic breathing of other supplicants around you, drifting into a sleep filled with anticipation, hoping for a glimpse of a god, a whispered instruction, a miraculous touch that would restore your sight. You sit, perhaps by the now calm waters of the Nile, and let your mind drift back to your own time, to a world where the very concept of blindness has been transformed. You think of the sterile operating rooms, the precise lasers, the microscopic lenses, and the medications that can halt infections before they even begin. It feels like a different universe, a testament to millennia of accumulated knowledge, scientific inquiry, and technological advancement. The ancient Egyptians, with their profound reverence for the eye, would surely be awestruck by the miracles of modern ophthalmology, by the clarity that can now be restored with a simple, painless procedure. It's like comparing a mud brick hut to a skyscraper. Both serve a purpose, but one represents an unimaginable leap in complexity and capability. The priests, acting as intermediaries, would guide you through rituals designed to invoke the deity's favor. These might involve purifications with sacred water, anointings with blessed oils, and lengthy prayers recited in the deity's honor. You might be asked to make offerings, perhaps loaves of bread, jars of beer, or small statuettes to appease the gods and demonstrate your devotion. The belief was that your illness might be a punishment for some transgression, or simply a trial sent by the gods, and through piety and ritual, you could earn their mercy and healing grace. It's a bit like trying to get a refund from a difficult merchant. Sometimes a polite request isn't enough. You need to bring gifts. A common historical fact you'd quickly grasp is that the very diseases that plagued ancient Egyptians, like trachoma, are still global health challenges in some parts of the world today. While largely eradicated in developed nations thanks to improved hygiene, antibiotics, and surgical interventions, it continues to cause blindness in impoverished communities with limited access to clean water and healthcare. This stark reality serves as a powerful reminder that the fight against preventable blindness is not just a relic of the past, but an ongoing battle, a continuum that stretches from the banks of the ancient Nile to remote villages in the present day. It's a sobering thought, realizing that some of their struggles, though mitigated, are still being fought. For eye ailments, specific deities were particularly invoked. Horus, whose eye was famously restored after being plucked out by Set, was a primary patron of eye health. You might see his image everywhere, on murals, on altars. His watchful eye a constant reminder of divine restoration. Thoth, the god of knowledge, wisdom, and magic, was also a key figure, as healing often required understanding the hidden causes of disease. A domain he oversaw. You would pray to them, visualize their divine light piercing the darkness in your eyes, and feel a profound sense of surrender to their will. You consider the ancient Egyptians' empirical approach. They observed, they experimented, they recorded. While their theories about the body were often flawed, their meticulous documentation in papyri like the Ebers and Edwin Smith papyrus provided a foundation upon which later civilizations, particularly the Greeks and Romans, would build. Their trials and errors, their successes and failures, became lessons etched in history, guiding future generations towards a more accurate understanding of human physiology and disease. It's like a child's first clumsy steps. They may stumble, but each fall teaches them something new about balance. A unique detail you might encounter is the use of magical stelae, or sippi of Horus. These were small stone tablets, often depicting Horus standing on crocodiles, grasping snakes and scorpions, with magical texts inscribed on them. Water would be poured over these stelae, collecting the magical essence of the text and images. This water, now imbued with divine power, would then be drunk by the patient or used to wash the afflicted area. Imagine drinking water that has literally flowed over a depiction of a god, believing it carries his healing energy directly into your body. It's a powerful psychological tool, if nothing else. Think about the sheer courage it must have taken to undergo a couching procedure without anesthesia, without sterile instruments, knowing the immense risks involved, or the unwavering faith required to believe that crocodile dung or a whispered incantation could restore your sight. This isn't just about their medical practices, it's about the human spirit's profound desire for healing, for wholeness, for the ability to perceive the world. Their desperation, born of necessity, fueled a relentless pursuit of solutions, however unconventional. It's a testament to their resilience, their refusal to simply surrender to the darkness. Historians still debate the precise nature of the sleep temples and the extent to which divine intervention was perceived as literal versus symbolic. While some scholars argue that the dreams were interpreted by priests to suggest practical remedies, others believe that the experience itself, the profound sense of divine presence, was considered the primary healing mechanism. It's a fascinating intersection of faith, psychology, and rudimentary medicine, where the mind's power to heal was perhaps inadvertently harnessed. A unique detail you might reflect upon is how some of their seemingly bizarre remedies contained elements that, unbeknownst to them, had genuine medicinal properties. Remember the honey. Its natural antiseptic qualities were beneficial, even if they didn't understand the microbiology, or the galena in coal, which produced nitric oxide, potentially stimulating the immune system. It's a fascinating serendipity, where intuition or observation stumbled upon a partial truth, even without the scientific framework to explain it. It's like finding a hidden treasure without a map, simply by digging in the right spot. You might be prescribed a period of fasting or dietary restrictions as part of your temple-based treatment. This wasn't just about physical purification, it was also a spiritual discipline, a way of demonstrating your commitment and making yourself more receptive to divine grace. You would feel your body lighten, your senses sharpen, perhaps even experiencing a heightened awareness that they believed would facilitate the healing process. Historians still debate the extent to which ancient Egyptian medical knowledge was disseminated and influenced later medical traditions. While there's clear evidence of transmission to the Greeks, the precise pathways and the full scope of their intellectual legacy remain subjects of ongoing academic discussion. Was it through direct translation of texts, through traveling physicians, or through broader cultural exchange? The answers are complex. A tangled web of influences that shaped the course of medical history. The priest might also administer herbal remedies or poultices, but these would be prepared with sacred rituals, perhaps blessed by the gods, elevating them beyond mere earthly medicine. The honey, the malachite. The plant extracts, they were not just ingredients, but conduits for divine power. It's like getting a prescription from a doctor, but the doctor also performs an exorcism over the pills. You also consider the psychological aspect of their treatments. The rituals, the prayers, the elaborate concoctions, even if physically ineffective. They offered hope, comfort, and a sense of agency in the face of overwhelming illness. The placebo effect, a powerful force even in modern medicine, would have been amplified by their deep spiritual beliefs and the authority of their healers. For a patient in ancient Egypt, the belief that a god was intervening, or that a powerful spell was at work, could be just as important as any physical remedy, offering solace in a world where true cures were often elusive. It's like a warm blanket on a cold night. It might not cure the illness, but it certainly makes you feel better. One of the lighter jokes you might hear among the temple attendants, perhaps after a particularly difficult patient, is about a man who prayed to Sekhmet for perfect vision. When he still couldn't see, he complained to the priest, who replied, but now you have the perfect vision of a lioness. You just need to learn how to hunt gazelles by scent. It highlights the often ambiguous nature of divine answers. One of the lighter jokes you might hear from a modern ophthalmologist, reflecting on the ancient practices, is about a patient who complained of blurry vision. The doctor, after a thorough examination, would sigh and say, "Well, at least you don't have a crocodile in your eye. That would definitely make things blurry." It's a humorous nod to the strangeness of ancient remedies. For chronic eye conditions, the temple might offer long-term residency, allowing you to live within its precincts, participating in daily rituals and receiving ongoing care. This provided a stable, supportive environment, free from the harsh realities of the outside world, and allowed for sustained spiritual and physical treatment. You would become part of the temple community, your healing journey intertwined with the sacred rhythms of divine worship. The ancient Egyptians' understanding of the eye, though limited, was a starting point. They identified key structures, observed the impact of environmental factors, and recognized the importance of certain dietary components. Their errors were not failures of intellect, but limitations of their era, a testament to the slow, painstaking process of scientific discovery. Every wrong turn, every dead end, ultimately contributed to the winding path that led to our current understanding. It's like building a pyramid. You start with a solid base, even if the early blocks aren't perfectly aligned. The role of specific cults in healing was also significant. For example, the cult of Hathor, goddess of love, beauty, and motherhood, was also associated with healing, particularly for women and children. You might visit her temple, seeking her gentle touch to soothe your inflamed eyes, her nurturing presence a comfort in your suffering. The diversity of deities meant that there was often a specific divine patron for almost every ailment, offering a tailored spiritual approach to healing. The very concept of specialization in medicine, with physicians of the eye, hints at an advanced medical system, even if their tools and theories were rudimentary. This division of labor, this focus on specific ailments, suggests a sophisticated approach to healthcare that laid the groundwork for future medical professions. They were, in many ways, pioneers, charting unknown territories in the vast landscape of human health. Historians still debate the exact medical training of these temple priests. While some were undoubtedly skilled in practical medicine, drawing upon the same knowledge base as secular physicians, others may have focused more on the magical and spiritual aspects of healing, relying on ritual and prayer. It's likely a spectrum, with some priests being highly competent medical practitioners, and others serving primarily as spiritual guides. Another unique detail is the symbolic importance of the eye in their art and religion. The eye of Horus, the Wadjet, was not just an artistic motif, it was a powerful symbol of protection and healing, reflecting their deep-seated anxiety about vision loss and their fervent desire for clarity. This cultural integration of medicine and spirituality is a hallmark of ancient Egyptian civilization, a reminder that healing was never just about the body, but about the soul and the cosmic order. You might be led to a sacred pool or spring within the temple grounds, its waters believed to possess purifying and healing properties. You would wash your eyes with this water, feeling its cool touch, believing that its divine essence would cleanse away the disease and restore clarity. The simple act of washing, combined with profound faith, could be a powerful psychological balm, offering a sense of renewal and hope. Historians still debate the precise socio-economic impact of widespread blindness in ancient Egypt. While it clearly led to individual hardship, the extent to which it affected overall societal productivity or led to specific social structures for the disabled remains a complex area of research, often inferred from limited textual and archaeological evidence. Another unique detail is the use of healing statues. These were statues of deities or deified individuals, often with specific magical inscriptions. Patients would touch the statue, or water would be poured over it and collected, similar to the stelae, to be consumed or applied to the body. The power of the deity was believed to reside within the statue, making it a tangible point of contact for divine healing. It's a bit like shaking hands with a saint. You think of the simple acts of care: a family member guiding a blind relative, a neighbor offering a helping hand, a community supporting those who could no longer contribute in traditional ways. These acts of human kindness, born of empathy and necessity, transcend time and technology. They are the true echoes of the past, reminding us that even in the face of insurmountable medical challenges, the human spirit's capacity for compassion remains a constant, unwavering light. The psychological impact of temple healing cannot be overstated. In a world where medical science was limited, the belief in divine intervention offered immense comfort and hope. The rituals, the prayers, the sacred atmosphere all contributed to a powerful placebo effect, often alleviating symptoms and fostering a sense of well-being, even if the underlying physical condition remained unchanged. Your mind, seeking relief, would readily embrace the possibility of a miracle. One more lighthearted joke, perhaps from a modern optician. After a particularly long day of eye exams, I've seen so many eyes today. I'm starting to think I need a third one just to keep track. It's a playful nod to the universal experience of dealing with the complexities of vision. You might hear a slightly more cynical joke from a temple worker who, after a long day of administering sacred water, remarked, "I've purified so many eyes today. I think I'm starting to see through walls. Or maybe that's just the exhaustion." It underscores the human element even in the most sacred of professions. As the last sliver of sun dips below the horizon and the stars begin to emerge, you realize that the story of ancient Egyptian blindness is not just a tale of medical curiosities and historical limitations. It's a profound narrative about resilience, about the human desire to overcome adversity, and about the long, winding path of scientific discovery. Their struggles, their beliefs, their earnest attempts all form a crucial chapter in the grand history of medicine, a testament to the enduring quest for sight. You close your eyes, not with the phantom blur of ancient afflictions, but with a quiet appreciation for the journey of knowledge, a journey that began in the sands of Egypt and continues to illuminate our world today. As the day draws to a close and the temple lamps cast long, flickering shadows, you feel a profound sense of peace. Your eyes may still be blurred, but your spirit feels lighter, your hope renewed. You have placed your trust in the divine, in the ancient wisdom of the priests, and in the enduring power of faith. Whether the cure comes from a sacred dream, a blessed ointment, or simply the profound psychological comfort of believing, you know that you have explored every avenue, sought every possible form of healing. You close your eyes, not with the ache of physical pain, but with the quiet hum of ancient chants in your ears, drifting into a sleep where perhaps, just perhaps, a divine vision awaits to guide you towards clarity.